It was just another Saturday afternoon. At least, that's how it started. The mall was buzzing as usual, voices overlapping, shoes scuffing against tile, distant pop songs bleeding through store speakers. I used to find comfort in that chaos. It drowned out my thoughts. That day, though, it felt different. I couldn't explain it then, but something was off. We had agreed to meet at Westfield for a so-called family afternoon. Jessa's idea, not mine. She always had a way of turning casual moments into performances. On the surface, she was all smiles and curated laughter, that polished charm she wore like expensive perfume. But underneath, well, Jessa had a way of cutting you without ever raising her voice. I came to San Jose hoping for peace. After the divorce, after the years of dodging emotional landmines, I just wanted quiet. Ezra, my son, deserved that too. He was 17 now, quiet but observant. He carried his father's silence, but not his cowardice. That day, he walked beside me, hands stuffed into his hoodie pocket. Jessa floated ahead, already halfway inside a boutique, calling over her shoulder, "You're gonna love this one, Pearl." I gave Ezra a look. He smirked. We followed her in. I told them I'd be right back. A work call. Honestly, I just needed air. I stepped out of the store, leaned against a pillar, and let my mind drift. When I returned, they didn't see me at first. Jessa had leaned in close to Ezra. Her voice was low, syrupy. I only caught the end. "You really don't look like him at all." Ezra blinked, looked up. His eyes flicked toward me, then away. She stood up, turned like nothing had happened. "Oh, hey, Pearl. They have this gorgeous sweater in your size." But Ezra, he wasn't the same. His body stiffened, his jaw set. He gave me a small, awkward nod and wandered off toward the men's section. I pretended to laugh, pretended not to notice, but inside, I froze. What the hell was that? I watched her twirl a blouse on the hanger like she hadn't just launched a grenade into my son's brain. My heart pounded against my ribs. Was that just me being paranoid? Or did she just plant a seed? Because that wasn't a slip of the tongue. That was calculated, deliberate, meant to stir something. I didn't confront her. Not right there. Instead, I waited. We walked into another store. Shoes this time. I said I'd go check for a different size. She nodded, all smiles. I ducked out and circled behind a display. There, between a pillar and a rack of sandals, I watched. She leaned toward him again. I couldn't hear every word, but enough. "Secrets families keep. Maybe one day you'll understand." Ezra's brows furrowed. He stepped back a little, glanced around, said something. She laughed softly, that fake little giggle I knew too well. He shook his head. His voice carried this time. "Can we just go home?" That did it. I stepped back into view, pretending I'd just returned. "They didn't have the right size," I said flatly. Jessa turned. "Oh no, that's a shame." Her eyes flicked between me and Ezra, like she was studying our faces. We left not long after. The ride home was quiet. I drove. Ezra stared out the window. I asked if he was okay. He didn't look at me, just shrugged. "Just tired." "Sure." Later that night, after he went to his room, I sat alone in the kitchen. The fridge buzzed. The house creaked. Every little sound grated on me. I replayed her words over and over, the way she said it, the way he looked at me. She'd done this before, in her way. When we were younger, she told our mother that I got around in college, a complete lie. But Mom believed her. She always did. That lie cost me more than I could explain. Years of distance. Trust shattered. So this wasn't new. This was Jessa doing what she does best, breaking people with whispers. I texted her. "We need to talk, tomorrow." I didn't expect a reply that night. She rarely answered anything directly. But when I passed Ezra's room on the way to bed, something made me stop. The light was off. I knocked. No answer. I opened the door. Empty. His phone sat on the desk, screen dark, still charging, and my heart dropped into my stomach. Where the hell did he go? And why would he leave without his phone? Ezra's phone was still on his desk, glowing softly. Screen unlocked, Charger in, his bed untouched. I stood there frozen, just air in my lungs, nothing else. That silence, it pierced right through me. Ezra? No answer. The garage? Empty. Backyard? Nothing. I walked up and down the neighborhood, barefoot, didn't even notice. Nobody saw him. A neighbor's porch light flickered like a bad omen. I started calling his closest friends. Have you seen Ezra? He hasn't said much lately. Seemed off. I tried to stay calm, but there was a hollowness in me, like something had already snapped. I stared at his shoes lined by the door. He didn't take them. I hesitated before calling Jessa. It rang once, twice, then straight to voicemail. That alone told me something wasn't right. By dawn, I was in the car. I retraced the mall route from the day before. Nothing felt familiar anymore. The lot was nearly empty. A stale fast food bag rolled in the breeze. I spotted a janitor dragging a trash can across the back lot. I waved him down. Did you see a boy here yesterday? Tall, brown hair, maybe seemed upset? He nodded, uncertain. Yeah, he was walking fast toward that exit there. Looked back a couple times like he was scared. I made my way to mall security. The woman behind the glass asked for ID before letting me in to view footage. We fast-forwarded through hours of blurry crowds and blinking lights. Then, there, I pointed. Ezra. He was walking alone through the corridor, hugging his arms, then glancing over his shoulder. Something was wrong. He wasn't just leaving. He was running from something. From someone. And I didn't know who. I walked out of that building with a weight I couldn't name. Then my phone rang. Jessa. I grabbed it. Too slow. It went to voicemail. Her voice was cool. Measured. I didn't mean to upset you yesterday. Kids grow up curious, Pearl. Maybe Ezra just wants to know the truth. My skin prickled. Truth. I replayed the voicemail. Again, then again. What truth? Why that tone? Why now? She knew something. Or she did something. That phrase. Just wants to know the truth. That was no slip of the tongue. That was bait. She wanted me to question myself. I could hear it in her voice. And I did. 17 years ago, after Ezra was born, my world was already crumbling. The rumors had started then. Quiet, but sharp. He doesn't look like her. Maybe something happened at the hospital. I dismissed it then. Called it gossip, cruelty. But Jessa had been around, hadn't she? Smiling, listening, maybe even spreading it. And what if she had planted that seed in Ezra's mind? What if that was what she said at the mall? I couldn't sit with that thought any longer. Driving home, I tried to focus, to keep breathing steady. I turned off the radio, just needed silence. Then, my phone buzzed. Ezra's location, pinged, 30 miles away, a hospital. I slammed the brakes, the name on the screen. It wasn't random. It was the hospital where I gave birth to him. I didn't even park straight. The car jolted into place just outside the emergency entrance, hazard lights blinking. I grabbed Ezra's picture from my dashboard and rushed inside, heart pounding like a war drum. I'm looking for my son, I told the nurse at the front desk, shoving the photo forward. Ezra, 16, about this tall. He came in this morning. She glanced at the screen, squinted. He checked in at 6:34 a.m., she said slowly. But, under a different last name, Ezra Mallory. Mallory? That's not his name. Ma'am, I just know what's in the system. My mouth went dry. Who gave him that name? Why would he even use it? She typed more. He's no longer in the ER. He requested access to patient records. I stared past her at the hallway behind the glass doors. I'm his mother. She didn't say anything, but after a beat, she buzzed me through. The hallways smelled the same, like cold tile and sanitizer. The same bitter scent that followed me out of this place 16 years ago. I never thought I'd walk back in asking if my son was mine. The staff member who met me didn't ask questions. She led me through a side wing and pointed ahead. That's where he went. I nodded, but my legs stayed frozen for a second. I knew what wing that was. The maternity ward. The records office was right next to it. The place I bled and screamed in. Where I held Ezra for the first time, after they'd told me he needed observation overnight. Where my family didn't show up. Where they didn't even call. It all came back in jagged pieces. I was told I'd been sedated longer than usual. Just precaution, they said. But I remember the hollow ache. I remember waking up and not knowing if I'd imagined giving birth. No one questioned it. Not even me. Back then, I didn't want to seem paranoid. I trusted the process. Trusted them. Now, every step closer to that hallway felt like walking into a trap I didn't know I'd been in. I saw him before he saw me. Ezra sat in the waiting area, hunched over, elbows on knees, holding a manila envelope like it might detonate. He looked up. His eyes were puffy, but not wet. He didn't say hi. Why does it say this isn't my birth certificate? I stopped. What? He held out the document, stiff. I requested a reprint. I took it and stared. Mother, blank, father, Mallory, a different first name, a nurse's note scribbled in pen, adoption pending, parental review incomplete. My throat closed. I looked up. Ezra didn't look angry. He looked removed, like I was a stranger in a familiar body. This isn't real, I whispered. He didn't flinch. Then explain it. I didn't have the words. I couldn't even feel my feet under me. A door creaked nearby. An older nurse walked past and stopped mid-step. Pearl? She said, voice uncertain. I turned. She squinted. I remember you. You had the tough delivery. 07, right? I nodded slowly. Her voice dropped. There was a situation back then. A mix-up. What kind of mix-up? Her lips tightened. The kind they handled quietly. She looked down the hall, then back at me. I shouldn't say more here. I'm off shift at noon. Café La Torre across the street. Come find me. She slipped a small note into my palm. Walked away. Ezra had heard everything. So, was I switched? He asked. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Was he? Was that possible? I remembered being alone in that room, for hours. I remembered the silence. I remembered how long it took for someone to finally say, "Congratulations." We walked out of the hospital together. I didn't know if he'd follow me, but he did. Halfway through the parking lot, Ezra turned to me. If I'm not your real son, why did you lie all these years? I looked at him. I opened my mouth. And for the first time in 16 years, I didn't know what the truth even was. Judith was already there when we arrived, seated at the farthest booth in the back corner of the cafe. Rain tapped gently against the windows, soft enough to ignore, but rhythmic enough to set a tone. The smell of stale croissants and burnt espresso clung to the air. It wasn't a cozy place. It was the kind of spot where conversations went to be forgotten. She didn't wave or smile when she saw us, just nodded and motioned to the seat across from her. Ezra and I slid in, still damp from the drizzle outside. I almost didn't come, she said, eyes flitting toward the front door, then the lone waitress behind the counter. This isn't something I want to carry around. I offered to buy her a coffee. She shook her head. I didn't come for comfort. I came to give you a warning. Her voice was hushed, but there was steel behind it. She leaned in. I worked the maternity ward the night your son was born. I remember you. Quiet. Alone. You didn't even get flowers. That last part hit harder than I expected. I didn't get flowers, or cards, or visitors. I remember thinking maybe that was normal. Maybe I just wasn't the kind of woman people celebrated. Judith glanced again toward the window, lowered her voice. There was something off that night. A man came, well-dressed, expensive watch, smooth. He signed in under legal access. Not a doctor, not listed as family. I frowned. What did he do? He met with your attending, then admin. Not long after, your baby, Ezra, was removed from the nursery. Temporarily, they said. Ezra stiffened beside me, my hands curled into fists on the table. He came back hours later, she continued. Same baby. But something felt different. I can't explain it. Like we were part of something we weren't supposed to understand. She slid a folded sheet of paper across the table. It was yellowed, creased a dozen times, like she'd kept it hidden in a coat pocket for years. I printed this before the file was shredded. Internal memo, hospital legal counsel. It said something about a temporary guardianship dispute, under sealed terms. Directive from upstairs not to inform the mother until discharge. I looked down at the document. I recognized the hospital header. I recognized my own name, but the rest felt like a foreign language. Legal jargon twisted to cover something cruel. Ezra leaned in, scanning it silently. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say a word. Judith lowered her voice even further. Back then, everything was still on paper. Admin storage kept it all in drawers. If the real documents still exist, they'll be in there, under the name Mallory. She pulled out a napkin and scribbled a series of numbers. Old passcode to the main drawer room. They never changed it. I stared at the napkin, then at her. Why are you helping me? Her face softened. Because I saw your face that night, and I saw the fear in that baby's eyes the day he came back. And because some families pay good money to keep things like this buried. She stood to leave. Just make sure you really want to know. Sometimes the truth doesn't give anything back. Ezra and I watched her walk out into the drizzle without looking back. On the way to the car, Ezra's voice broke through the silence. So they wanted to hide me. From you? Or from someone else? He wasn't upset anymore. He sounded like he was solving a riddle. One with sharp edges. I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away, but he didn't squeeze back either. Later that night, I waited until Ezra was asleep, or at least pretending to be, and slipped out. The hospital was quieter after dark. I knew where I was going. I'd walked those halls before in a different life. Back then, I was wheeled past them, drugged and dizzy, bleeding and scared. This time, I walked with purpose. The admin wing hadn't changed much, just more dust, fewer lights. I found the drawer room. The lock still used the same keypad. The passcode worked. The drawer groaned when I pulled it open. Folders, files, paper clips, ink-smudged forms. Then I saw it. A tan folder with the name Mallory in bold marker. Inside was a notarized contract. Signed, stamped, filed away like it was just another piece of office paper. But the name on the signature line didn't belong to a doctor. It belonged to someone in my own family. The drawer protested when I yanked it open, metal groaning against rusted hinges like it hadn't been touched since the day it was sealed. A waft of old paper and something faintly chemical hit me. The folders inside were sorted by year, handwritten tabs slowly fading. I found the one I was looking for, 2007, Ward 3B. My fingers hesitated over it. Ezra stood just behind me, quiet, arms folded. I could feel his eyes on my back, like he already knew what I was about to find. The folder labeled Mallory Ezra was thicker than the others, heavier somehow. When I opened it, a clipped packet fell forward, a legal guardianship form, stamped and notarized. It looked official, governmental, cold. I read it once, then again. Temporary placement with biological maternal relative pending formal confirmation. And right there, on the signature line, Jessa R. Linden, my sister. My knees didn't buckle. My voice didn't crack. I just stood there, motionless. Numb, but hyper-aware. My mind scanning through every possible explanation, trying to make sense of something that never should have existed. That signature sat on the page like a nail in a coffin. Jessa. All those years of jokes, her saying, Ezra's got more of my fire than yours, or, are you sure he didn't skip a generation and land on me? I laughed then. Every time, I thought she was being playful, affectionate. But now, those words replayed like needles scratching at old tape. And the hospital. I remember being in recovery longer than I expected. Hours passed before I saw Ezra. They told me it was routine. Post-op fog. Safety protocols. But that wasn't it, was it? They kept me out of the way. They gave her access. My sister. The one who held my hand through the pregnancy. The one who took photos of my baby bump. Who picked out nursery curtains with me like it was her job. Did she know the whole time? Was that her plan? I peeled back another page in the file, a release form with my name on it, a shaky signature scrawled across the bottom. It looked like mine. Almost. But the loops were too tall, the ink a little wobbly. My hand never moved like that, even drugged. Did they forge it? Or worse, did they drug me so heavily I signed something I couldn't read? Attached was a note from a hospital social worker. Mother disoriented, heavily sedated, family member assisting with medical decisions. Family member. Singular. They rewrote my life while I was unconscious. Behind me, Ezra sank to the floor, back against the hallway wall. He held a few of the forms in his lap, flipping them slowly, like reading a newspaper on a long flight. His voice came low. She wanted me. I turned. He didn't look at me. That's what this is, right? Aunt Jessa tried to be my mom? There was no anger in his voice, just something flatter, something colder. He stared at the signature like it held the truth of his whole life. Then he asked, without looking up, "So who decided I should end up with you?" I stepped forward. Me. I did. I fought for you the second I woke up. I told them you were mine. But I said it too late. His head didn't turn. His fingers didn't stop skimming the pages, like he didn't even hear me, like he wasn't sure if anything I said was real anymore. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A voicemail. Jessa. I pressed play without thinking. Her voice was tight, clipped, controlled. Pearl, if you're reading old files, call me before you tell him anything. You don't know what you're waking up. She didn't sound scared. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded like someone who knew exactly how deep this went. I didn't knock. I walked up Jessa's porch like it was mine, gravel crackling under my shoes, breath tight in my throat. The folder from the hospital weighed down my arm like it was filled with bricks, not paper. She opened the door, almost too casually. Hair pulled back, makeup light, house slippers on, like she'd just come back from yoga. Like I hadn't just uncovered the ugliest truth of our lives. I didn't wait for an invitation. I walked in. The house smelled like lemon-scented cleaner and burnt toast. The silence inside was loud. Her kids were at school. Her husband, probably at that job where he smiled too wide and talked too slow. Perfect family, perfect home. I slapped the folder down on her kitchen counter. It echoed. "Tell me why you signed this." She didn't flinch. She just looked at it, then at me, and slowly pulled out a chair. "I thought you were going to die, Pearl." Her voice was too calm, like she'd rehearsed this in the mirror. "They told me after the hemorrhage, you might not make it, you were unconscious. They didn't know if you'd recover. The social worker asked if I'd step in, just in case." I stared at her. "You didn't tell me. You never said a word." She nodded, like that made it okay. "Because you did wake up. And after that, what would have been the point?" I wanted to scream. My hands curled into fists at my sides. "You signed a guardianship form before I even woke up." "I did what I thought was best for Ezra," she said. "No," I snapped. "You did what was best for you." Her face tightened. "You were always chaos, Pearl. Even before Ezra. You were the storm. I was the shore." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not from her. "You wanted my son, and when you couldn't have him, you buried it, and buried me right along with it." Neither of us noticed the front door until it clicked open. Ezra. He had been standing outside. I'd left the car running, told him I just needed a minute. But now he was walking in. Quiet. Still. Jessa stood, suddenly soft. "Ezra, hi baby. You still love pancakes with lemon zest?" His eyes didn't flicker. "Did you ever think I'd want to choose for myself?" he asked. Her smile faltered. "You were a baby, Ezra. You didn't have a voice yet. I had to protect you." "No, you didn't." His voice didn't rise. "You had to protect your version of me, that perfect family you never really had. That's what you were clinging to, not me." She reached out. He didn't move. He turned and walked right past her. I looked back at her one last time. You know what hurts worse than betrayal? I said. The way it wears your face, and still pretends it was love. She didn't respond, so I asked the question I'd been holding since last night. If I had died, would you have told him the truth? She blinked, didn't answer, didn't even try. I don't hate you, I said, but I'll never forgive you, because forgiveness requires truth. And you're still hiding behind your story. Ezra was already back in the car when I stepped outside. I slid into the seat, my breath shallow. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. We were halfway down the block when my phone buzzed. A new email. Sender, lighthousefiles@protonmail.com. Subject, you're not even close to the real truth. Meet me tonight. The air inside my living room felt like it was made of nails. Papers littered the coffee table, contracts, notes, copies of old hospital records, each one proof of how long I'd let them play me. My chest felt like it might give out every time the phone buzzed. Most of the messages were from Jessa, Ilsa, or worse, family group texts that said nothing real, just noise. Ezra stood across from me, holding his phone, jaw clenched. He set it down on the table. No preamble. Just, you need to hear this. I nodded. He pressed play, and then it was her voice, Jessa, telling someone exactly what to say if that story ever comes up. Calm, coached, rehearsed. Background music played faintly in the clip, like they didn't even care enough to mute it. I could hear how smug she sounded, like this wasn't the first time she'd done it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there and realized the dam had broken. No more pretending. No more covering up other people's messes. I reached for my phone. Marisol picked up on the third ring. You never call unless someone's dead. Feels close, I said. I told her everything. The guardianship that had been filed without my full knowledge, the mismatched hospital paperwork, and now, this recording. She listened without interrupting, but I could hear her breathing change. Lawyers do that when they sense blood in the water. I want to come in, I told her. With Ezra. Can you look over this stuff? Bring it in. I'll cancel my 6 o'clock. By the time we got to her office, the sun had dropped. Her place was quiet, lined with old wood shelves and a ceiling fan that clicked every few seconds. She scanned the paperwork first, then looked up slowly. I don't know if what Ilsa did was technically criminal, she said, but it's definitely unethical. Could be argued as coercion, abuse of medical proxy maybe. Civil court would eat this up. But would it change anything? I asked. It would expose them, she said, and it would shift the power back to you. Ezra was quiet most of the time, but I saw it in him, something firming up. That fire I had longed to see in his eyes since he was a boy. He had found his line. 2 days later, Ilsa fired back. A letter, on embossed legal letterhead. It arrived in my mailbox folded twice and sealed with that fake elegance she always clung to. Inside, it accused me of defamation, of destabilizing Ezra's emotional health, of publicly weaponizing sensitive medical information. There was no mention of the recording, not a word. I stood in the kitchen with the letter in my hands and felt my knees go soft for half a second. It was the kind of moment where an older version of me might have folded, called and apologized, tried to patch things up. But then I looked over at Ezra, who had just opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and turned to me. He saw the letter, saw my face. Don't stop, he said. Not now. So we didn't. Marisol helped us put together a packet. Hospital records, dates, signatures, the voicemail from Jessa, and now this recording. She even contacted a signature expert to verify discrepancies in the guardianship documents. We weren't just preparing to confront them, we were preparing to dismantle their version of the story. Ezra offered to be there when we presented it. At the family gathering, Ilsa was still foolish enough to insist on hosting next week. I want to be in the room, he said. I want them to look me in the face. We agreed to bring Vlad Corley too, someone neutral, someone who had known both sides long enough to be a steady witness, not a referee, a record keeper. I started rehearsing what I'd say. Not a rant, not some emotional spiral, just facts, one at a time. You'll see me, and you'll hear truth, I whispered aloud to myself that night, standing in the mirror. The night before the gathering, I was brushing my hair when my phone buzzed. It was from Jessa, a video. I almost deleted it on reflex, but I hit play, and there she was, sitting in a room I didn't recognize, lighting soft, her voice low. She was recording Ilsa. Not knowing the camera was rolling, Ilsa spoke like a woman untouchable, calm, smirking. Yes, I had to bend a few things. Pearl's never been stable. You give someone like that too much control, and the whole family suffers. It's not personal, it's survival. And then the kicker. If Marisol wants to drag this into court, fine. She's got skeletons too, and I've got friends in places she doesn't. The screen went dark. I stood frozen. The phone slipped from my fingers onto the bathroom rug. Tomorrow, I would walk into that house and show every one of them what it looks like when the tide turns. Ilsa's house looked the same, but the air around it didn't. Something in the wind felt sharp, like it knew what was coming. Guests had already gathered in the backyard. Plastic cups clinking, kids darting between adults who pretended nothing in our family had cracked. As I stepped out of the car, the recording, the documents, and the guardianship contract weighed down my bag and my chest. She greeted me on the front steps, arms open, her smile stretched just a little too wide. "Pearl, you made it," she said like a politician on camera. I walked right past her into the living room. The air inside was colder, controlled, the kind of air Ilsa liked. No microphone, no podium. Just a house full of people and years of silence stretching between them. I didn't need a stage. I placed the speaker down, pulled out the papers, and cleared my throat. I know many of you came here thinking this was a celebration, a reunion. But if we don't deal with what's underneath, we're just frosting over rot. People shifted. Some sat down, some stayed standing, arms crossed. Ilsa didn't sit. She hovered. I pressed play. Her voice filled the room, clear, deliberate, unmistakable. Talking about the guardianship, the records, how it was better Pearl never knew. The room fell into a frozen kind of silence. You could almost hear people blinking. Then came the murmurs. "Wait, what is this? Is that Ilsa?" The music in the background of the audio didn't hide her words. If anything, it made them colder. Ezra stood beside me. His presence was steady. He didn't need to speak. His silence had weight, more than Ilsa's words ever had. Ilsa's face twitched. She tried to laugh it off. "That recording is taken out of context." I lifted the signed guardianship document. This wasn't. And this signature? Verified. Twice. Aunt Melinda leaned forward. "Ilsa, please tell me you didn't do this." Ilsa looked around like she was searching for someone to save her. But no one moved. "You were going to erase me," I said, "and rewrite Ezra's life because it fit your version of clean." Her voice cracked. "You weren't stable, Pearl. I did what I thought was best." "Best for who?" Ezra's voice cut across the room. "You didn't even ask." Ilsa's words faltered. Her jaw tightened. She stood there, looking like a woman who'd lost her cue card. Her attorney arrived 20 minutes too late, young, overconfident, talking about defamation and privacy. Nobody listened. He looked around and seemed to realize he'd walked into the wrong kind of fire. Vlad Corley stood slowly near the back. He'd been quiet all evening, but now he said it loud enough for everyone to hear. "You took away someone's mother. Tonight, you can't take away the truth." People shifted away from Ilsa. Myra didn't move to her side. Even family friends, the kind who'd never taken a side, were stepping back now. The room flipped. Ilsa no longer held the floor. I did. I looked down at my notes, then folded them. I didn't need them. "I'm not here for vengeance," I said. "But we can't move forward when everything we've been standing on is a lie." I listed what we'd found. Every document, every recording, every file Ilsa had tried to keep buried. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just laid the bricks of truth down, one after another. Ezra leaned into the silence. My mom never stopped being my mother. The yard quieted. Even the kids had gone still. Ilsa opened her mouth again, but this time no sound came. Her words were spent, her defenses useless. I sat down next to Ezra. My whole body shook, but not from fear, from relief, from a truth finally spoken out loud. Then, just as things were starting to settle, a woman I didn't recognize approached me with an envelope. She whispered, "I think this belongs to you. I didn't want it getting lost." It was hospital stationery, a medical folder, old, brittle at the edges. I opened it slowly. Inside, test results I'd never seen, lab work tied to my name, or Ezra's. I looked up at Ilsa, her face drained. I woke before the sun had fully climbed. The silence felt different. Not heavy, not hollow, just still. I sat up and listened. No arguing voices, no phones buzzing, no tightness in my chest demanding I prepare for another battle. From the kitchen, I heard the low hum of the coffee machine. Ezra was up early too. I walked out and saw him already pouring a cup, the way people do when they've decided life needs a bit of normal, no matter how bent it's been. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied, my voice barely there. I gathered the papers, all the proof from the night before. I didn't shred them. I didn't frame them either, just tucked them neatly into an envelope and slid it into the drawer. The war was over. The wound, still there. My phone buzzed with messages. Vlad sent a simple heart. Others, neighbors, people I hadn't heard from in years, said things like, "Proud of you," "Took guts," and "We had no idea." For once, it didn't feel like pity. It felt like truth echoing back. I wasn't invisible anymore. Later that morning, I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. A letter I wrote but never sent. It was folded up in an old shoebox, tucked between baby socks and Ezra's first drawing of a tree that looked more like a three-legged dog. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. The ink had faded some, but the words punched like fresh wounds. "I'm scared you'll grow up never knowing who I was. I love you more than quiet. I need you to know I didn't leave. I was taken." Ezra walked in, curious. I let him sit beside me, and I read some of it out loud. My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. When I finished, he was quiet for a beat, then said, "You've always been my mom, not just someone who showed up, someone who stayed." That broke me a little, but in the best way. In the afternoon, I went to see Vlad. We sat in his garden. He was trimming roses, and the air smelled like rain had recently passed, even though the ground was dry. "You did what a lot of people never do," he said. "You stood in front of your pain and didn't flinch." I didn't respond right away. I was still trying to believe it myself. "I don't know if forgiveness is something I even want," I said. "Maybe not today," he nodded. "Maybe never. But you took your story back. That counts." On the way home, I called Jessa. She didn't pick up. I didn't expect her to. I left a voicemail, short and clean. "I don't hate you. I just won't let you write my ending. Not anymore." I turned off the phone, stood outside. Let the quiet morning sun land on my face. For once, it didn't burn. Ezra and I visited the hospital garden that afternoon, the same hospital where I first held him. We found a bench and sat. Around us were kids with kites, nurses on break, an old man feeding pigeons. "I don't want the lies anymore," Ezra said. "You won't have to carry them," I told him. "You get to choose who you are, not who they told you to be." He looked at me, eyes wet but not falling. I took his hand. In my bag, I found the butterfly handkerchief, the one I'd carried since that day in the park. I folded it carefully and placed it in my coat pocket. Not to forget, but to remember who I've become. That night, I sent a message to the family group chat. I told the truth. I stand in it now. If you choose truth too, I'll welcome you. If not, I move forward anyway. I sat on the couch, leaning back, eyes on the far wall. The sunlight there cast long, stretched shadows, but they didn't scare me anymore.